Here we go. Okay. So we are going to go ahead and get started today. And so my name is Joanna Brewington, and I have the honor the 2021 No Speaker Series. And I would love to open us in prayer. So would ask that you would please bow your heads. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we're so very grateful for everybody on this call today. On this meeting who's coming to learn more about how Catholic Charities welcomes the stranger and just wraps our arms around our brothers and sisters who've been through so much. So I ask for continued blessings on their families and all the people that we're going to be serving through Refugee Services this year, as well as all the other programs at Catholic Charities that we have. And we pray these and all things in the name of your Son, our Lord, Jesus Christ. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So I just want to say thank you so much to our overall presenting sponsor, EECU, and our session sponsor, Ventomatic. They have really offered their support this year to support the No Poverty Speaker Series in support of our mission to provide service to those in need, to advocate compassion and justice within the structures of society, and to call all people of goodwill to do the same. So we're going to hear from Ventomatic in just a quick little bit. But before we get into all of that, I just wanted to go over a couple of housekeeping rules. So this meeting is being recorded because we want to be able to share this with other people who were not able to join us today. We do ask that you turn off your video and stay on mute until the question and answer period. That helps with the bandwidth. And then please know that anytime during Shalaina's presentation, you are able to type in any questions you may have into the chat feature. So we are going to now have a quick video from our session sponsor, and that is Ventomatic. Caitlin, are you gonna?
Yes, one moment. Joanna, can you see it okay? It's showing up really weird on my end.
I actually am seeing Shalaina. Oh, here we are. Now it's pulling up. Thank you.
Okay. So sorry, everyone. Technical difficulties. Give us 1 minute.
Hi everyone, this is Victoria. It may also help us if all of our guests could mute and please turn off your video, and that way we might be able to save the internet today if it were. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ryan McConnell, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Ventomatic. We are a manufacturer of ventilation that's based in both Mineral Wells and in Fort Worth. And we are one of the proud sponsors today of the Catholic Charities Refugee Services Speaker Series. We came to know the Refugee Services at Catholic Charities a number of years ago when we were looking for some additional workers for our plant in Mineral Wells. After contacting the Refugee Services group, they told us that they had a number of people that were available and were eager to come to work for us, even though it was a full hour bus drive every morning away from Fort Worth, a full 8-hour days, and a full 1-hour bus drive back. During our time employing these fantastic people that came from the Refugee Services, I got the pleasure to know people from all over the world that were looking for a better life, and they were more than willing to do hard work hard hours, and really just to make a better life. I cannot thank the Refugee Services people enough. all the individuals that we dealt with through Catholic Charities. It was a fantastic experience for us as an employer, and I highly recommend anyone with the ability to employ someone from this program to do so. But even more as people and as human beings, getting to know these individuals who were coming from a country or in many cases, a camp that is a terrible situation, and they found themselves in a very foreign land, but having the services that Catholic Charities provides and the Refugee Services that allowed them to go to work, make a living, and have a positive experience for themselves, I think is an incredible experience. And we have a wonderful organization with Catholic Charities and Refugee Services in North Texas that really does help these people. And it is our pleasure to sponsor this, and it is my pleasure to fully endorse this program and really encourage other employees to look into it and to support the program individually, even if you're not an employer. I want to say thank you to Catholic Charities for this opportunity, and we appreciate the partnership that we've had with you in the past. Thanks.
What a beautiful testimony. I absolutely love to hear that. I have the distinct honor now of introducing you to our Director of Refugee Services, Shalaina Abioye. Shalaina.
Thanks, Joanna, and thank you so much for that sponsorship from Venomatic. I am Shalaina Abioye. I am the Director of Refugee Services, and I've been with the agency in my position for about 4.5 years now. I started working with refugees back in 2007 as a volunteer, so I was someone like you guys who wanted to learn more about refugees and how I could help. And I loved refugees so much, I decided to switch careers from the semiconductor manufacturing industry to refugee services. And so I'm so glad to have you guys here today. Caitlin, I am ready for the presentation. And I want us to start off with a quick video about Albert Einstein, who himself was a refugee who was resettled in the United States.
Albert Einstein was born in Germany to Jewish parents in 1879 and raised in a non-religious household. But even though he didn't identify as Jewish in the religious sense, he did identify as Jewish as his nationality. This identity, his immense popularity, and his outspoken support on Jewish issues would eventually make him a target of the Nazi Party. In 1905, Einstein rose to fame in what some call his miracle year, publishing numerous physics papers, including one that featured the now famous E = mc squared, that revolutionized the way we think about our universe. In 1915, he published his theory of relativity, and in 1921, he won the Nobel Prize. But as Einstein's popularity was growing in the field of physics, anti-Semitism was spreading around him, and soon, he became a target of the Nazi Party. His theories were denounced publicly by local anti-Semitic scientists, his work cast aside and labeled Jewish physics, and a Nazi-backed pamphlet was published entitled 100 Authors Against Einstein. His books were burned, a bounty was put on his head, and his face appeared on the cover of a magazine with the headline, "Not Yet Hanged." He had no choice but to flee Germany, accepting a job at Princeton University in the United States. Albert Einstein was now a refugee. While in the United States, Einstein may be most famous for his role in the creation of nuclear weapons and his eventual vocal opposition to them. But he also fought for European refugees, using his position to lobby Eleanor Roosevelt to reach out to her husband about a 1939 child refugee bill that would have allowed 20,000 Jewish children under the age of 14 into the country. The bill ultimately died in committee due to outspoken anti-immigrant sentiment. Einstein stayed in the United States as a citizen until his death. but he never forgot the privilege of being able to successfully escape the horrors of Nazi Germany.
So we have so many of our refugee clients who have experienced a lot of the same things that Albert Einstein had experienced during his refugee journey. So I will go ahead and if we can go to the next slide and you can press through all of the things. Thank you very much. I want to explain to you the difference between immigrants and refugees. And so a lot of the times we hear the term refugees and it's entangled with some of the other immigration statuses that we see in the United States. So immigrants that we usually think of are economic immigrants who come here for work or school or other types of things, tourists and that type of thing. But refugees are a special immigrant group who are invited here by the State Department. And the reason for that is because these individuals have had to flee their countries based on persecution or a well-founded fear of persecution due to one of these types of persecutions that have been outlined by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. That is race, religion, nationality, social group status, or political opinion. Now, refugees don't have to meet all 5 of these persecutions to be able to apply for refugee status. They only have to meet one of these. And so that's what's the difference between refugees and why they are invited to our country versus immigrants who come for other reasons. Next slide, please. There are 3 durable solutions that have been outlined for refugees by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. That first one is voluntary repatriation. Just like many of us who are born in our countries and love our countries, if we ever had to leave, more than likely we always would want to go back. And so, but only if it's safe for us. If it's not safe for us, we wouldn't stay in our countries or flee and go to an unknown land. And so voluntary repatriation back to an individual's country is the first solution that most people, including refugees, would like. But in most cases, they are unable to go back because of the continued conflict and because of the continued fear for their lives and persecution. And so voluntary repatriation is usually not an option as a solution for many of these refugees. So the second option is local integration. Most of the time when refugees flee their country, they go to a neighboring country, but as we all know, most of those neighboring countries are also unstable. They don't have the infrastructures to locally integrate refugees within their economies and within their populations. A lot of the times they are continued to be harassed. They don't have a path to citizenship and they aren't able to work or move freely in those countries. They're typically in camps or urban areas that's specified for refugees and aren't able to move around the country and have freedom to pursue happiness and well-being. And so local integration in most cases is also not a solution for refugees. So the third durable solution is third country resettlement, and that's where the United States and about 20 other countries come in. And that's when the solutions for voluntary repatriation and local integration were not options. And so the last option for them is to come to a country and be served by someone like Catholic Charities Fort Worth. Next slide. And to get here or to get to any of the other countries that accept refugees, they have to go through a very long and thorough process. That process starts off with either a referral from the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, the U.S. Embassy, or a non-governmental organization working in that country or surrounding area like the Red Cross or Salvation Army and many others. And they will refer groups of people, individuals, or families to apply for refugee status. Once they do that, they are screened by what's called the Resettlement Support Center that are in different regional areas of the world who help process refugee applications. And they send those applications on for background checks and screenings by 4 agencies in the United States. That's Department of Homeland Security, the National Terrorism Center, the FBI, and the Department of State. They have interagency background checks. They're checking with each other and that type of thing. And those who move forward in the process go on for immigration interviews with the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. They have officers overseas in these regions that complete these interviews. And they will sometimes go through several different interviews, making sure stories line up and are checked out and that type of thing. And then they go on for further screening. They have medical screenings, and then they continue to have recurrent vetting with the Department of State, FBI, and Homeland Security. Once they go through that and are approved, they go through the refugee arrival process. However, back in 2017, 2018, there were some additional steps that were added to the screening process, which they are now required to do biographic and identity investigations. They have to do biometric checks of fingerprints and photographs. They also now, which is not listed, they do iris checks of the eyes because they're able to identify people in that way as well. They go through additional medical screenings, background checks with domestic and international security agencies from countries in Europe and that type of thing. And then refugees from certain countries get additional screenings as well. And so once they are approved, we'll go to the next slide and talk about the arrival process. So prior to arrival, once they're approved, they go through cultural orientation. There's 3 organizations that help them with that. So they give an overview of the country that they're going to, set expectations on programs, on policies and laws and that type of thing, and what's required of them. So that's the International Organization for Migration, the International Refugee Committee, and also the International Catholic Migration Committee also. And then they are allocated to what's called a VOLAG. And so there's 9 VOLAGs, which is short for voluntary agencies across the United States. One of those that CCFW works under is the United Conference of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. There's others like Lutheran Services and Church World Services, World Relief. So they are assigned these cases nationally. And then each of these national agencies have different affiliates across the United States. So United States Catholic Bishops has about 100 offices that they partner with. One of those are CCFW. And then they allocate those cases across those offices in different states. Once they are assigned to us, we have the ability to approve or deny the case. I would say 99% of the time we approve all of the cases that are assigned to us, at least here at CCFW. The times that cases would be denied is if, for instance, most of our cases are traveling to meet family. So there may be a husband and wife who were separated that are reuniting, or parents and their children, grandparents. And so the only time we would typically deny is if they don't have any family ties here, and if they are over 65 and unable to work. The welfare system here in Texas just isn't capable of taking care of that population, but Arizona and California are great for that population. And so in those very few instances, that's when we would deny a case. And once we approve it, those cases travel to our cities, and then they're met by our staff. And in the next slide, I want you all to view a video about a family who is preparing to come to Texas, but in the past.
دي أسافر هنا بدي أطلع هناك.
لوين رايح؟
على مدينة تكساس، ولاية تكساس. أتمنى إنه يتعلموا وياخذوا مستقبل أحسن من مستقبلنا إحنا. يعيشوا أحسن من العيش اللي عشناها إحنا.
نسينا كل شيء. الإنسان شبه الوطن بالأم، شو بينسى الواحد، شو بيسوى الواحد شيء بلا أمه. وين حطها هو؟
أصعب شيء إنك تاكي أهلك ماشي أنت. هاي الحالة كيف؟
مين أكثر شيء صعب فيكم؟
كلهم.
في حدا معين؟
أكيد أبوي.
Thank you, Caitlin. So we are also always so grateful to be able to help these families when they arrive. And so families like Firas arrive to the United States and they are met by our staff, and I'll talk a little bit more about that a little later. If we'll go to the next slide, I'll just give a quick historical overview before we jump into some of the programs that we offer here. So as you can see, we have been serving refugees in the Fort Worth area since 1975, specifically at CCFW since 1975. And during that time, we've seen different levels of arrivals. As you can see on this chart, back in 1975, the United States accepted just under 150,000 refugees. In the 1980s through the early 2000s is when we saw the largest number of refugees who were accepted and invited to the United States. The different populations have changed over time based on conflicts and other things that have happened in those nations. So obviously in the 1970s, the largest population of refugees at that time were Vietnamese. Then we went on to what happened with the USSR. So Soviet Union refugees came from Russia, Yugoslavia, Bosnia, so many others that were impacted by that. And then in the early 2000s, we started seeing individuals from Kosovo, from Cuba, Somalia, and Laos. And then in the mid to late 2000s, we started seeing more people, Bhutanese people from Nepal, Burmese, as well as those from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And as you can see, Asians have been the majority of refugees who have arrived through the program, followed by Europeans, Africans, and then those from Latin America. Right now in Catholic Charities Fort Worth, our largest populations are from the Democratic Republic of Congo, Afghanistan, and then we just have a few families that trickle in from different countries like Iran, Sri Lanka, Somalia, Ethiopia, and Sudan. Next slide, please. So this is just a graph of the arrivals that we have welcomed here at Catholic Charities Fort Worth in the last 5 or 6 years. So you can see back in 2016, we welcomed 644 individuals, and that number went down over the past few years with one of our lowest numbers last year in 2020. It went slightly up in 2021, and this year we are on a fiscal year, which started October 1st. We do expect from October 1st to September 30th of next year that we will be able to invite and welcome 300 individuals. So we are happy to see this trend increasing and hoping to help more families as the years progress. Next slide. All right. So I want to give you an overview of the initial program that refugees are enrolled in and who welcome refugees. This is called our Reception and Placement Program, or RMP. And so in this program, prior to their arrival, we get a notification once they go through that approval process that I talked about, and we start working on their case right away. So we find an apartment for them. We put furniture in the apartment. We go Walmart shopping. And so any of the things that you or I would need for a new home, we would buy those things like pots and pans, utensils, bed sheets and comforters, pillows, hygiene items. All of those things we make sure are there in the apartment so that when we pick them up, usually they fly into a different port of entry like New York or New Jersey. So by the time they get to DFW airport, it's about midnight when we pick up most of our families. I would say 80% of our families come at midnight or later. So when we pick them up, we want to make sure that they go to a home that's fully furnished where they can rest, they can eat. We make sure that they have a warm, culturally appropriate meal for them at the apartment waiting for them, as well as some staple foods for the next few days. We take them to the grocery store to buy more groceries, to also introduce them to the U.S. grocery stores, show them how to look at prices and labels and that type of thing. We provide cash assistance to them so they can buy things that they may need that we aren't required to buy. And then we start all of the necessary services to get them stabilized and towards self-sufficiency as quickly as possible. So that's helping them apply for food stamps and temporary Medicaid assistance, temporary cash assistance. We help their children get enrolled in school. We refer them to our in-house refugee employment programs and other case management programs to meet health and medical needs and various different needs. And so we have to do all of these things based on the government guidelines, which is within 30 days. So there's a lot going on at that time that we have to do, but we're so glad to be able to do it. And I want to show you all a video of an airport pickup where two families or where a family is reuniting.
So leo ninafurahi sana, naona vitu vya miracle kabisa. Juu sikuwa najua kama naweza fika leo hii, na tunashukuru Mungu kwa sababu anafika. Nilikuwa nimekata kwanza kitumeni nikawaza hata kuya tena, lakini Mungu anajibia tena maombi yangu. Leo ilikuwa nakuya, nasikia kufurahi sana. Oh, it's coming, it's coming. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Good.
Wale mshatuona, hakuna deni. Kwa Afrika hakuna deni, tunamaliza.
Furaha mingi sana. Furaha mingi sana. Najuza kama ni yeye ama si yeye, so, lakini ni yeye kwa kweli. Sasa hivi tutafika kwa nyumba, tutakula pamoja, tutakunywa. Kama atabatika pate masomo asome, anatafuta kazi anasoma, tunaendelesha maisha pamoja.
Every time I see that video, I've seen this video so many times, it still just tugs at my heartstrings. We'll go to the next slide now. So here is a quick overview of the programs that we offer here at at Catholic Charities Refugee Services. The first one I talked about, the reception and placement program. That's the program where we meet them at the airport and do all of the apartment setups and shopping and all of those services. We have the match grant program, and actually I won't go into the programs on this slide. We'll go to the next slide where it's broken down into the different departments that we have. Next slide, please. So our first department that we have is Refugee Resettlement Services. So there's 3 programs here. There's the Reception and Placement Program. There's a new program that we literally just implemented in the last few weeks, and that is due to the evacuations of Afghans when the U.S. pulled out. And I will talk about that specifically in a few slides, so I won't get too much into that right now. And then we have the Match Grant Program. And so the Afghan Placement and Assistance Program is almost identical to the Reception and Placement Program, except for it is for Afghans who have been evacuated with the U.S. government, who are now housed at different safe havens, or what we call the bases around the country, as well as some lily pad sites, which are other bases right outside the country where some of them are waiting to be resettled. And we have the Match Grant Program, which provides case management, temporary cash assistance, and employment services. Right now, we are required, right now we have 100% job placement rate in the Match Grant Program. Clients are required to become employed between 120 and 180 days after they've arrived. And within that time frame, 100% of those families are employed. And so they are always so eager to work. Most of the time they are employed by day 60 in the country, and we're so glad to have the different employer partnerships that we have, which I'll talk about on another slide. Next slide, please. We have another department called Refugee Wellness Services. Here we have our refugee mental health, which provides clinical counseling for adults, as well as intensive case management for chronic diseases and long-term or terminal diseases here. We all know that because of the plight of refugees, a lot of them do have trauma that they bring with them that could be a challenge, could be a barrier for their success. And so we want to remove as many barriers as we can. And that's one of the reasons why we make sure that we have that service available to them. We also have the social adjustment services, which is case management that focuses on health and medical navigation, as well as any emergencies that come up, and cultural orientation. We have the older refugee program, which is identical to the social adjustment services program, but it's for those refugees who are 60 and up, so that they can have some one-on-one specified services. We have the Afghan SQSI program, which is another new program. We have not yet implemented it yet. We're waiting on the funder to give us the green light to start services for that program, which provides case management and employment services to the Afghan evacuees. We also have refugee medical assistance, which provides medical assistance for their first 8 months in the country. And then we have the Walmart SNAP grant, where we help them apply for SNAP and make sure that they understand whether or not they're eligible for that service. Next slide, please. We have our third department, which is Refugee Economic Services. We have our Refugee Employment Services Program, our Refugee Cash Assistance Program, the Economic Advancement for Refugees and Immigrants, and our Nauru and Papua New Guinea program. The first 2 programs here, self-explanatory. Employment helps them find jobs, helps with interviewing, resumes. We also we partner with the employers to make sure if any issues come up, that we're there to help address those, to educate them about refugees and hiring refugees and that type of thing. So we're there as a support for the employers that we work with as well. Our refugee cash assistance is also temporary for up to 8 months in the country. Our Economic Advancement for Refugees and Immigrants program is a program that helps them continue with their long-term employment needs. And so a lot of the times they have to take the first available job just to start getting money coming in so that they can pay bills once our cash assistance and other assistance ends. And so once they're more stable, they can go into this program and work towards certifications, associate's degrees. We've had folks go on to get their master's degrees. And then the Nauru and Papua New Guinea program is a new program that we received last year that's funded by the Australian government. And it is for refugees who fled to Australia mainland and the islands of Nauru and Papua New Guinea. And in addition to the trauma that they faced in their countries as refugees, they faced additional trauma in Nauru, Papua New Guinea, and mainland Australia because they were harassed and tortured there. And so because of that, these folks are coming with even higher levels of trauma. And this program is to make sure that there are no gaps in services, that they are connected to mental health services and stay connected to those services, and that they have a path for upward mobility that is rapid, that helps also with their mental health. And so I wanted to show you guys some of the partners that we have, the employment partners as well as education partners, economic advancement partners that we have. So Amazon hires a lot of our clients, as well as Walmart. They pay great salaries as well. Cargill, and then as far as education and furthering their education, we have the North Texas Institute for Career Development, which is Goodwill, Vision Truck Driving School. I think we've probably sent 50 clients through there. Tarrant County College when they want to extend their English, as well as start credit classes, and then the Tarrant Literacy Coalition. We've been able to get a lot of refugees their GEDs as well. So we're so happy to have these partners that work with our economic services team. Next slide, please. Our final department is Refugee Education Services. We offer ESL for our adults. Prior to COVID, these classes were held at the clubhouses in apartment complexes where a lot of our refugees live. We have 3 full-time ESL instructors that hold those classes. Right now, they are online because of COVID. And so we hope to, when it's safe, to get back in person and be able to hold those in person again because of the greater impact. And then we have the Refugee School Impact Program. In this program, we serve parents of school children, so we orientate them on the American system, American education system. We also provide intervention assistance, so if there's any issues between the school and the child and the parent, we sort of help come and be a liaison for all parties. A lot of the times these students have not been in a classroom that we are familiar with. They may have been on a dirt floor in a camp, and their teacher was the one who just knew the most English in the camp. And so a lot of the times they're not used to having to sit in a hard desk straight all day raising their hands. And so sometimes there are things that come up where we have to intervene and educate the ISD personnel on what to expect, and having empathy and patience as these children transition to a very, very new environment for them. We also provide tutoring for them so that they are not left behind in their classrooms. We focus on literacy to get their English proficiency up much quicker. And then we also provide professional development to the ISD personnel. Next slide, please. Now, because of everything that has been in the media, it's died down quite a bit recently, but about 5 weeks ago, back in August, 5 or 6 weeks ago, you guys probably saw the footage of Afghans getting on flights and being left at the airport and all of that. And so we are so thankful that we are able to step in and help these individuals. And so right now, there are about 65,000 Afghans who have been evacuated with the U.S. government. Most of these individuals are what we call special immigrant visa holders. Either they had been approved, were in the process of getting approved, or they were eligible to apply for this. This status is very similar to refugees. They come through the refugee program just like refugees do. The only difference is that their cases were being expedited, and that was because of their allegiance and alignment with our government and military in their countries. And so that put a target on them as traitors to their country. They were working as interpreters, security detail, drivers, cooks, intelligence gathering for our military in their countries. And so because of that, it was no longer safe for them to remain in their countries. However, we had already been receiving Afghan special immigrant visas since about 2007, 2008. So it seemed like it was a new crisis in the media, but in the refugee resettlement community, we had already been helping these individuals for over a decade now. However, a lot of them were evacuated prior to their refugee or SIV cases being approved, or before they even had a chance to apply for approval. And so they're now given a special status called humanitarian parolee status, and we are able to help them with that status. We have started to see them arrive from the bases at Catholic Charities Fort Worth in the last 2 weeks. We are set to be able to accept about 225 of them before Christmas. So we're quite busy now getting everything geared up and getting staff hired to be able to welcome them and make sure that they have hope for their future. Next slide, please. So who else do we serve? So I talked a little bit about the special immigrant visa holders, and those are folks from Afghanistan or Iraq. But right now, most of the Iraqi special immigrant visa holders, they had come in the last decade, so most of them have already arrived here. Right now, the focus is on the Afghan special immigrant visa holders. We serve asylees, but not asylum seekers, and so you may hear about folks at the border trying to apply for asylum status, and that usually takes a few years. They have to go through the immigration system and go before an immigration judge to be granted asylum status. So once they are granted that status, we are able to serve them in all of the same refugee programs, but we are not able to serve them if they are still in the process and have yet not received that status. We also serve Cuban and Haitian entrants or parolees. These individuals also can show up at the border. They have to show that they are from Cuba or Haiti. And once they do, they go through an expedited process and they are given entrant or parolee status, and then they are allowed to go to their final destination. Once they do, they can reach out to the resettlement agencies and request services, and we can start serving them at that time. We also help victims of trafficking. We talked about the special immigrant parolees from Afghanistan and also the humanitarian parolees from Afghanistan. Next slide, please. This just shows the duration of services. A lot of our programs are up to 5 years. We don't hold their cases open for 5 years. We close their cases if their needs and goals are met, but if they have new needs that arise, we can open those cases back up. And then some of our services are very limited in time, up to 3 months, 6 months, or 8 months. Next slide, please. So how you can help, we are always in need of gift card donations from Walmart. Those help us purchase supplies for apartments. Monetary donations are always welcome. New household items for us to set up apartments, like sheet sets, pillows, hygiene items, kitchen items, and of course, volunteers. For a long time, we didn't have opportunities for volunteers in person, and Joanna will be talking about some of our volunteer opportunities in detail. And I will turn it over to Joanna.
Thank you, Shalaina. That was absolutely wonderful. So we do have some volunteer opportunities right now, agency-wide and specifically with Refugee Services. Our biggest need is for more people to serve as ambassadors and really get the word out about the work that we're doing in Refugee Services, but across all of our programs. And it's a really easy thing to bring anywhere from 10 to 15 people together to learn about the agency and just see how they can help make our community a better place. And we're going to put the volunteer information email in there if you have information that you would like to receive on being an ambassador for us. We also specifically with Refugee Services have some urgent volunteer needs. Number one is doing apartment setups, and these are in person. This happens, as Shalaina mentioned, when we get that call that we're going to have the honor of resettling a family, that you are on call to help our Catholic Charities staff set up this apartment for them so that they have a warm or a cool, safe place that is welcoming for them. So we would love to have people do that. It is short notice and you do have to be able to move furniture, but we would love to get a group of people who could really step into the fray and really help us with that. So that would be absolutely amazing. Secondly, we need school impact tutors. As Shalaina also shared, we do have a program because so many of these kiddos, they're not used to sitting in schools all day long. And there are educational, socialization, all kinds of issues. So we have tutors. And right now, this is a virtual opportunity. It's working with small groups or the children one-on-one. And you have all your training materials provided to you, but it's it's an hour a week. Our biggest needs are really on Wednesdays and Thursdays right now. We provide training, all the materials. If you have a heart to help some of these sweet children, we would love to hear from you on that. And last but not least, we just found out that we may be having some opportunities coming up soon for people who will be able to help us do airport pickups for some of our refugee clients. Our volunteer services program is waiting to get those details from Shalaina and team. But if that is something that would interest you, and if you have a heart for that, again, we would love to hear from you. We can put the email in the chat. It's volunteer@ccdofw.org. So we're really excited about all these volunteer opportunities. We would love for you all to be able to do one or both or some of them. That would be wonderful. And I would love to open it up now for anybody who has any questions about the information that Shalaina has shared with us today, and see what questions you might have. Victoria, did we have, Bob, you had a question?
Yes, I did. In addition to the forecast, or does the forecast of arrivals that you gave us of approximately 300 anticipated resettlements during 2022 include the SIV, SI parolee, and humanitarian totals, or are they in addition to normal refugees?
Yes, they are in addition to. So we're looking at about 525 that we will resettle in FY22. Most likely more. We are being asked to increase our capacities for the humanitarian parolees, or we're mostly calling them evacuees interchangeably. And so because there's so many, I think there's about 56,000 left on the bases right now, and it's getting cold and they are living in tents. And so the government really wants to get them to their final destinations very quickly. So we do anticipate that we will resettle more than the 225 before March of next year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All righty, and let's see. So Butch. Okay, so Butch, did that answer your question when Bob asked that question about the Afghan refugee numbers, what we anticipate overall for 2022?
Yes, it took care of it for me.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, what other questions do we have for Shalaina today? You can unmute, you can put things in the chat. All right, Shalaina, we do have a question. Will you please explain again the definitions of and the difference between SIV and a parolee refugee? And how are the services that CCFW provides different between those two statuses?
Absolutely. So the SIVs are individuals who had previously applied and had been approved for SIV status. The parolees are individuals who were either in the process of applying for SIV status while they were still in Afghanistan, or they had yet to apply but were eligible to apply and had not before they had been evacuated, since those evacuations happened so quickly. And so now that they're here, instead of continuing with those applications or accepting new applications for SIV status, in order to get them help more quickly for agencies like us to help them, the government is just granting them this special parolee status, which allows us to help them. Just 2 weeks ago, prior to 2 weeks ago, they did not have access to the rest of our refugee services programs. And so one of the programs that I mentioned, the Afghan SQSI program, was specifically funded for them because they couldn't go into the refugee programs. However, Congress passed a bill 2 weeks ago that allows them to access all of the other programs now. And so that's why we're holding off on implementing that program, since they are able to access the other programs. So right now, they're all treated the same. I hope that answers your question.
All right. Butch is asking, he said, I'm not sure you came up with the term parolee, but it has a somewhat negative concept. Is that a government term?
Yes, it is a government term. It's what's stamped on their passports or their one of their immigration documents called the I-94. It is a government term, and yes, it is very confusing because when people hear parolee, they think of the corrections industry, and so, or corrections, and so yeah, it is a negative term, but that is their official immigration status. Is on their passports, it's parolee.
Thank you for clarifying that. And then we have another question from Lisa. This is an excellent presentation. Thank you, Lisa. I know it's being recorded. May we share a recording of this information with others who have questions regarding the refugee services?
If it's up to me, yes.
We usually do share these. So for people who were not able to join us, you know, sometimes people have scheduling conflicts, and we want everybody, all of our community partners and supporters to know as much as they can about all the great work that's happening at Catholic Charities and our programs. All right, do I have any other questions?
And Joanna, I failed to show 2 more videos. So if we have time to share at least one of those, I would really love to share videos of Catholic Charities refugee clients.
We have, let me see here, we have a couple of minutes left. Caitlin, is there time for Cameron's video?
Yes.
In that time? All righty. We will close this out on a Catholic Charities high note.
I was born in a third world country in Central Asia, and I'd rather not name it for the safety of my relatives who are still there. The country is under dictatorship, and people don't really control the wealth in there. And I like to believe it's getting better eventually, but there's still a lot of work to do. The reasons for living were as simple as better life, just escaping poverty and authoritarian regime. We wanted better education and job opportunities. We wanted something more. So we had to escape illegally, and we just hopped on the train and took off, hoping that nobody catches us. And we lived in Russia for 10 years. My mother only could hold jobs that paid under the table, and those are not high-paying jobs. You know, we were doomed to be in poverty. My sister and I always went to school. Education has been always a priority in my family. Every time we moved to a new location, the first thing my mother did was go find a school, the best school in the region, and then bribe the teachers and the principal to take us in illegally. My mother is a very strong person. She's in fact one of the strongest people I've ever seen in my life. She's always had that internal fire. She's always been a fighter. She raised my sister and I all alone in a new country, full of strangers, completely new culture, new way of thinking, new language, and she had to survive and make sure that we survive as well. And we were finally able to come to the United States as refugees from our country of origin. When my mom found out that we were coming to the United States, she was thrilled. She was ready to go. Like, we were given about 10-day notice before we took off from Moscow, and we did not hesitate a second. And we immediately packed our stuff, and we're on the way. We got off the plane, and we're scared. It's a whole new country, new language, new society. How are we gonna talk to anybody, like, without even knowing the language? And we see a caseworker for Catholic Charities Fort Worth, and he took us to our ready apartment with a full fridge, set beds, everything ready to go. They put my sister and I into school and helped my mother get a first job, and also helped us learn English through ESL classes. Catholic Charities helped us with the naturalization classes, helped us with the technical process of becoming a citizen in the United States. I felt like I have a country now, because for many years before then, I was not a citizen of anywhere. I did not exist in the system anywhere, you know what I mean? And at this point, I was valid. My existence was valid. Catholic Charities was the organization that brought us here and helped us integrate into society enough so we can stand on our feet without having to rely on anybody else. And at the moment, I am about to graduate from Rhodes College, Memphis, Tennessee, on a full ride. My sister just recently got accepted to TCU, also on a full ride. And my mother is a certified teacher at Pascal High School. And I think Catholic Charities was one of the essential elements, one of the crucial elements to our success. Because Catholic Charities helped my family get out of poverty, I really believe in the mission, and therefore I came back and I want to be part of this mission. I had opportunity to intern with Catholic Charities. I hopped around different departments and saw how different organs of the organization work. Now I'm interning closer to the administration. I would not be where I am right now if the United States did not accept me as a refugee and Catholic Charities did not help me integrate into the society. I'm definitely very grateful, and I just hope to carry on Catholic Charities' legacy. And we just came to conquer the American dream, you know, and we're not going to settle for anything less.
What a beautiful way to end our time together today. I just want to thank everybody so much for being here, for excuse me, coming and learning how we welcome the stranger. And we would love to know if you think of any other questions. So somebody from our team will be calling you to follow up.
Sorry, Joanna, you froze there for a minute, so we didn't hear everything.
I was just saying thank you so much. This filled my cup today. I hope it filled your cup. Thank you so much for coming to learn about our wonderful Refugee Services program. So thank you all, and God bless.
Thank you so much. Thank you.